the futurist William Gibson noted that the future is already here. It's not just very evenly distributed. So I want to use that to introduce our next presenters, and these are two students from Eckerd College, and they were part of a process for the first Civic Excellence Awards, and they were judged to be the best project that we looked at, and later tomorrow we'll kind of let you know about the reviewers, and many of them are in the audience. But this is the new voter turnout project, and so they're already up on the screen. So I'd like to welcome Isabel Muir and Madeleine Silvestri, and come up, and you're going to both present together? Okay, so Madeleine, all right.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a good week. I wanted to thank Ms. Schoon for her wonderful presentation. I know we did some work for Amendment 4 on our campus as well, and it was really important, and we were really all excited when it got passed, and community building as well. We love that. That's kind of the basis of what we do. But I'm here to talk a little bit about our experience on Eckerd as a case study, but also the student perks and kind of our values and how we got started as well. So just to go over the agenda real quick, so I will talk a little bit about how we were formed, and then what I work on specifically, our New Voters Project. It's a little baby, I love it. And turning out the youth vote, that's probably our biggest goal, with our problems, vision, and solution that we are proposing. And then we're going to look at the work that we've done just at Eckerd College. I'm a second year, so it has been quite quick that I've been doing it. I just got started last year, but it's definitely helped me grow in more ways outside of the classroom than inside, getting real experience talking to people. And then looking to the future, because that's really what's important, and why we've been building up this momentum is so we can have the highest turnout in our college's history for the 2020 fall general elections. So yeah, 2020 and beyond, and any questions you might have. So the student perks, while we were kind of started by Ralph Nader, who we all know passed the seatbelts. He did a lot of lawmaking work for the general public. He really fought for the public interest. But we are mainly started by students. We are student run. Students came together. They wanted to look for change. They realized they didn't have many resources that are allocated specifically to us. So what we did is we formed groups on campuses around the country, forming coalitions so we could share the resources that we all had. Yes. Yeah, so we have formed this national nonprofit network where we get access to so many resources from the national aspect while also making one-on-one peer mobilization on campuses. So once a month, I'll hop on a video call with the NVP National, the New Voters Project head from National, and he'll give us little trainings, tell us what we might want to be looking forward to, possible events we can all do together nationally and then post about later. And so it is student run and mainly student funded. That is an important aspect as well, because each campus will put in an allotment so we can all participate and really have the final voice when it comes to what we want to do, because these are our ideas, and we are just getting the resources and training for it. And that's what makes us so unique, is that it will always be student run. It will always be the newest generation coming together to solve the problems that we're going to be facing in the future. So New Voters Project. I do want to say a little bit before this is that our founder, Aiden Brown, in 2017 was working for someone in National, and he said, hey, people at my school don't vote, the way I think they should, and everyone that should. And so he came together with some other political science students and started a chapter here. And then he went on to be the chapter chair and mainly did New Voters Project things with other campaigns doing their own agendas. And I have taken over the position as the campaign coordinator as he graduated last year and is doing wonderful things. But that's kind of Eckerd's little story. But for the New Voters Project overall, we've registered 2.3 million people to vote and made lots of contacts. And for these 2018 midterm election points, these are just for Florida. This isn't even national. We've organized on 12 different campuses, and we've helped register over 10,000 young people to vote. And just to put in perspective, yes. Yeah, there are over 1 million eligible youth voters. So there's a lot more that we can do. We just want to be able to get onto campuses, put out our tables, get the forms out. Florida does make it a little difficult, as you have to be there in person if you don't have a state ID. And that becomes pretty problematic when you're talking about students, because we move a lot, we are from out of the state, and so we are there with everything to give them, literally spoon feeding the registrations and all the information they need to know for polling, things like that. And with the New Voters Project, I think the most important thing here is the peer-to-peer mobilization that we have. It allows us to connect with our community. And what I mean by that is we'll go into classrooms, we'll ask the professor beforehand, we'll be like, hey, would you mind if we came in and just told students that election day is coming up and what they might need to know. So this allows us to directly talk with them instead of another group or something. It's a club on campus directly speaking with their own friends and students. In Eckerd's case, it particularly works well because the classes are so small. And so we get to see friendly faces and say, hey, we just wanted to remind you, we have vans. So yeah, we also do a lot of trainings, over 200 volunteers. I know in our school, we get a lot of the freshmen and within the first semester, our first autumn term is what it's called there. And we train them how to register. We put them in leadership positions so that they can carry on their own events. And then I also wanted to note how 76.3% of the people who we register actually turn out. So that does show like the effectiveness of peer-to-peer speaking and mobilization. Okay. And so just to take a step back, students and the youth vote in general is disproportionately low in the voting blocks. And this is a problem, as most of the problems that we are going to be facing, the younger generation knows way too well. And a great example of that is climate change. You know, if youth votes, like if we had a culture that inspired people to actually get out there and think that their vote made a decision in the larger scheme, you know, 20, 30 years ago, we might have actual climate change policy instead of value resolutions. It's a really big problem which, you know, we go to tackle. We like to create voting culture by just being there as a presence, by always being available to talk to and to answer any questions. And the logistics are also a big part of this. Like I said, people are not always taught to hit up your polling section, your polling location as soon as you move to your new location. So we are here to provide all that good stuff. And also, there are a lot of resistors that go against youth voting. Higher education institutions do not push for it as a culture. States make it hard for youth groups to form and youth to vote. In Florida, we do know that well. So this is the NSOLVE report, the National Study of Learning, Voting, and Engagement. This is performed by Tufts University, and it allows universities to apply to have all their data to be collected and then taken with other universities as well. So it really allows student groups to have access to the data we need to fix the holes in our organizing, to look where we need to improve, and it also just looks good for the college. If you have signed up for this, then it shows that you're committed to voting culture in general and wanting to push to be better. And so here's a little bit from this. See, as I said, our registration rates and turning out are the most effective. And it's gotten better. It's still not where we'd like it to be, but that's for where 2020 we really want to push these strategies that we've been cultivating on our own campus so we can get the maximum amount of turnout for the future. And I did talk about peer-to-peer mobilization, and this is an aspect of that. We do phone banking, which is basically 10 of us students will get into a room. We'll have numbers of people who said they would like to pledge to vote. And basically we text them and we say, hey, this is Madeleine from Eckerd College's PERG Club. And we know that you wanted to vote, and we wondered if you had a plan for voting tomorrow. So we do it the night before, and the responses we get are pretty great. You know, people are glad that we're reaching out, and they're glad that we are making an effort for this, because it's not the first thing people think of just because it hasn't been instilled to be. So we are going to be that driving force that's going to be help facilitating students now and continuing to the future. So just for an example, I can't really read this because my eyes don't work too well. But for example, we texted, okay, do you know what time you're going to the polls? They're open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. A student responded, my class ends at 1:45 on Tuesday, so anytime after that. And so then we're here to say, great, I would recommend going as soon after class as you can. And people are so people need these logistics to be able to go out. And sometimes we get some funny responses, and it's interesting. But it's a really good way to connect with students and just to be there for them. That's all what we do. We are for students, by students. And this is one of the most effective ways to actually see results, because every time we text someone and get a confirm, we tally it down. We keep all of the data so we know where we're headed and where we're going. And at our school, we actually hold vans, which run 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Because we're so small, we can just rent out a couple of the 12-seater vans and just run them all day. And it's a really fun experience. We have like a little party at the polls just to get it hyped. We have food, drinks, some music. We make voting playlists. But this is all just to create a general culture where people are excited for it, because we know that historically it has been suppressed for so many different groups. And we want to be there to enforce a new vision of it. StudentVote.org is a new means of institutionalization. And in Florida, and specifically at our school, it will help around 10% of the population. And that's unfortunate, because you, as I said, you have to be there in person to fill out a paper form if you do not have a Florida state ID or driver's license. But this is still a means of a university to show that they care about it. So even though it only helps like 10% of our student population, we still want to make a drive to the administration to say, hey, if you support voting culture and what we're doing on campus and the work that we're doing and to improve the turnout, then we should have this on every website of the college. On the resource pages, on the athletic page, it should be there, because we want to make a drive for it. And as I said, states are one of the resistors that youth voters face. Whenever groups come together, even in a nonpartisan way, to advocate for voting, states have come up against it. We have seen this with examples at our own precinct polling station just 2 minutes away from campus. The laws, or the regulations, sorry, that the polling administrators choose, they pick and choose, basically, kind of dependent on who's there. And it is something that we will have PERC people come in and say, hey, well, actually, we know that this is the actual rule, and this person should be allowed to vote. So youth groups are fighting this legally, in person, and on state levels, because it needs to be done. So our vision is, imagine if the youth were the first place that decision makers stopped to appeal to us. If there weren't so many vested interests in other places, that they came to us first, because we know the problems that are going to be facing us for the next, 5 decades. And if that could happen, the world might take a progressive turn. Voting culture is such a big part of that going to instill it. And, the turnout is the final goal, but the voting culture is mainly what we work to improve and make, fun for people. And so we want to test out this vision and all the strategies and peer mobilization that I've been discussing at our own college. So like I said, Aiden Brown and a couple of poli-sci students came together to say, hey, we want more people to vote. And they started a chapter. And when we first started, no one knew how to register people to vote. We had to get trainings for that. There's not resources that are specifically allocated and available to students. Even the logistics of voting, going onto websites to see where your precinct is difficult. So that first step of getting these trainings was really important for us. But Eckerd College is a pretty small school, around 10 minutes away. We're a 2,000 liberal arts school, and we're pretty well known for our marine science program and our biological sciences. But we have a strong culture of people who care about issues, and that's the great place to start. That's a great place to start. Because people come here and they're saying, oh, I see that something's changing in the world, and I want to come in and do work to improve it. And so they enroll in the sciences, they do things like that. But what we want to do is enable them with a solution. Because people come here and they're passionate about the issues, but there's a passivity and not realizing that they can do anything to fix it. So we're here to provide some of those first steps in culture to say that, yes, you can do something about it, and the first step is voting. It's not the only step. There's a lot more beyond that. But to give them the first stepping stools to allow them to see that they are a part of it, more so than they just have to, learn about it and in their own niche fields. There's a grander picture to be looked at. And so this is some of the midterm work that we've done. Midterms was the first time we were able to take the strategies that we had been, learning about and actually test them out on the students. And so from 2014 to 2018, we had a 300% increase in the turnout at Eckerd College, and it increased immensely. And we're proud of that, because before, people kind of take voting as like something you don't talk about, it's nuanced, but here we want to put it in your face. We want to say that this is what we should do. We have all of the resources you need. Here's the registration form. Here's your polling location. Now go. So we did a lot to change that. And it has been interesting working with the administration in that. They think we're a trend, I think, a little bit, and that we might graduate and it'll go away. But I don't think it will. Yeah, yeah. And that goes along again with like higher institutions. It looks good to promote voting, but they see it as student control. And I think we should have a little bit of control over what our voices do and what they say, nonpartisanly. Sorry. But yeah, so we did work to increase this. And then we also tested it out in city council elections, which local elections are very hard to get people to turn out to. It is abysmal what the last city council election was at Eckerd College. It was like 5 people. And we saw a 2,700% increase with our efforts this fall. Yep. So these are some of our voters using the vans. That's Will. He drove them like most of the day, so claps to him. And what we also did was dorm storming, which is another aspect of peer mobilization. Because Eckerd's so small, we are literally able to contact every student on campus by knocking on the doors. We send out 2 people per dorm complex, and they can just knock them all in like an hour or so. But we knock, we say, hi, we're from PERG, looking to inform you that elections are tomorrow. We had a candidate information sheet because Florida has interesting local election rules, let me tell you. Because the primaries are just in your district, and then the general is all the districts. There's some historical reasoning behind that. So we needed to tell people, you're voting for all districts, and these are all the candidates. So we taped all candidate sheets on all the doors. That created great visibility. Everyone who walked through the dorms would know what's going on. And it also allowed us to have like good conversations with people, like one-to-one. That's where it starts. Like we can come to you and be like, PERG, 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 but it has to start with saying like, hi, how's your day? How are you doing? We know that elections are coming up, and we wanted to make sure you were informed. And this is an example of an adorable text we got from students just talking about it. So we know our vote work is effective, not just in Florida and coming here, but we've also had the opportunity to win awards across the nation. Rutgers University has one of the biggest, they re-vote every 2 years to reaffirm their chapter's position on campus. And the voting process for that is insane because of how large the school is. So New Jersey Student PERGs has done amazing work, and they've won some amazing awards as well. We get the opportunities to meet and network with amazing older people like you, so we can look to the future and making these important connections, because we can't learn by ourselves. Like, we need you guys, and that's just the truth. And that's why we have people working at National who have done this in their own colleges and then said, hey, I want to do this as my whole career, so they can help us all the time, 24/7. They really love to help us. It's great. Our campus organizer is named Ariel, and she does so much to help us in training. She sits us down and says, hey, you should have a plan and specific goals for this. Here's how to run a more effective campaign meeting. She gives us all these amazing tips that allow us to just be more effective. So looking towards 2020, we have 3 goals. We want to be able to build coalitions so that all the work isn't just on us, so we can also help people and people help us in meaningful ways. And when we're speaking on campus levels, this means that we are reaching out to not just, other activist clubs, but popular clubs. Like in Eckerd's case, we have a rugby team that is fairly popular. People love to go out to the games. And so if a rugby player comes up and says, oh, hey, yeah, election day's tomorrow, aren't you voting? Like, that means so much more than what 10 or 15 PERG volunteers might say to you, waving at you from the sidewalk. So we're reaching out to popular clubs, representative clubs, activist clubs. We have, the parties, and then a Generation Action Club. And also deans, faculty as well. And we look to update them on what we're doing and how they might be able to help us in 2020 just by spreading information, visibility efforts for events and primaries, et cetera. And we also would like to build student leaders. We want to be able to train students up so that they can take on the work as well. For example, we have a freshman, Isabel Moyer. I met her earlier this fall, and she is a marine science major, so she cares deeply about what's affecting us right now. And she joined our New Voters Project and was able to do the Get Out the Vote efforts for the city council elections. And this was some really great work that she did. She organized tabling, she set up volunteers, and she was able to oversee the goals of the whole operation and make sure that they were fulfilled. And this was really important to see, that freshmen are able to take on small or big roles and mobilize more of their peers than they've ever thought to do. And I learned this my first year in coming into the New Voters Project, as being able to work on the midterm elections and set up those polling parties that I talked about. So yeah, this is like some of the fun stuff that we do. We don't just yell at people to vote. We make cupcakes and get together. And we really want to see people have fun when they vote. That's one of our main goals.